1987 to 2018. 31 years and so many games make up the full Metal Gear saga, non-canon and spin-offs included. It refined the stealth genre within gaming and became a huge part of the gaming zeitgeist. So many iconic characters and moments live on, known by people who have never even played a Metal Gear game. For decades, it was the jewel in Konami's crown, and made them a fair few quid. It's amazing to think that not only did the first game nearly not happen as it did, we have the crappy MSX and its inability to process high action to thank for that, but that it was never meant to be a huge multi-game saga to begin with. Metal Gear was meant to be a one and done, or rather a two and done if you count the NES port for the US market. But thankfully for us, we got a sequel, and the rest, as they say, is history. No, not that sequel, this sequel, Snake's Revenge. Please stick with me here. Started before and released 3 months ahead of Metal Gear 2, Snake's Revenge is the first ever sequel in this series. Not only that, but it didn't completely reinvent the wheel. Okay, maybe the side-scrolling bits, but we'll get to that, trust me. But generally, it took everything from the NES port of the original and expanded on them. And not forgetting the NES port was based on the Kojima-approved MSX version. Yes, the NES version was programmed poorly, but generally it was the same. Mainly. And yes, Snake was a lieutenant now for some reason, and roided to the max. But this was US media in the early 90s, don't forget. But there were mainstays that were introduced in Snake's Revenge. These include spotlights, a combat knife, crawling, a radar, kind of, shotguns, interrogating guards for info. There's even a loose buddy-like element to it, as Snake enters with 2 teammates and needs assistance from them to progress, like being able to access the base. Granted, I'm reaching with that one. The 2 big ones for me though are crawling and interrogations. Yes, the crawling can only be done in the side-scrolling sections, and Metal Gear 2 would use this much better in only a few months' time. But interrogations wouldn't get used in a canon Metal Gear until Snake Eater in 2004. This, quite obvious when you think about it, mechanic took 14 years to appear. Granted, holding guards up with a knife to their throat is much better than dispersing some truth gas, but for an 8-bit game, it's a good way of introducing the mechanic and aligning it with the hostage rescue mechanic and having it add to the star rating. Something taken from the original. Now, don't let all this praise fool you. I'm in no way calling Snake's Revenge a good game. It's not the worst thing ever, but has some horrible inclusions. These spotlights make progression way too difficult right at the start of the game. The bosses are far too difficult, especially the first one. John being replaced with a spy is never resolved. I mean, was this meant to form part of a 3rd game? Maybe? This mistranslation screws up the ending. Jennifer is not a spy for the enemy. The enemy find out that she is a spy for you. Totally different. And let's finally talk about the side-scrolling. What a mess. Enemies swarm here more than normal and are quicker and more capable than Snake, and detection is nearly guaranteed unless you crawl into each new screen. This is so unfair to the player and has nothing to do with skill. What a dumb inclusion. But without this game, Kojima may not have ever made Metal Gear 2 and used that as a basis to make Metal Gear Solid. And that is the nicest thing I can say about Snake's Revenge. It has just so much working against it, and commits 2 cardinal sins for a Metal Gear game. 2 things that are so Metal Gear, it's impossible to have Snake and not these. The first is his trademark cigarettes, but much more importantly, Snake's Revenge has no cardboard box. Unforgivable.